Uh-oh, somebody didn't let Dak and the boys know.
It's a trap!
Is all hope lost for the season? We'll tell you if we think so. Next. Meanwhile, it was tough sledding for Colorado up there in Oregon. Find out what's in store for them as this season continues. Furthermore, the NBA has put on notice yet again, this time by another international player. Packed show. Stick around and get our thoughts plus so much more this week's episode of 3D.
Woo! Good morning, good afternoon, good night to whatever time that you may be watching. This is 3D, the Daily Dollar Digest. I am your host, William Bush, back again to bring you yet another episode here on 3D. I got a special treat for you all tonight. Just stick around as we get into the midst of this treat-giving season. We're not handing out treats here on 3D. No candy will be handed out. But instead, we need these guys to hold this L. So these three individuals will be needing to hold these L after this past weekend's performances. First, Andre Dillard. I need you to hold this L, buddy. You were terrible yesterday. Myles Garrett was all over you from the word go, from the word set, from the word hut. He was down your back. And Ryan Tannehill should probably be angry at you. I know he was throwing you the dirtiest beams and looks as soon as that game was over. Andre Dillard, I know Myles Garrett is a beast, but you got to do better, my friend. You are protecting the blind side after all. And Sandra Bullock ain't going to be here to save you. So, on this play specifically, you managed to get yourself and your quarterback sacked in the same play. So, for that, Andre Dillard, you have to hold this L. The next L that I'm handing out is not to one individual, but the entire Broncos organization. You have to hold this L. After this past weekend's drumming, 70-20, a 50-point blowout defeat, Miami blew out the Broncos organization. Sean Payton, who called out Nate Hackett this past offseason, saying that he was the worst coaching job that he had ever seen. Quite frankly, Nathaniel Hackett did not give up 70 points in the game to anybody. Nathaniel Hackett did not lose by 50 points in the game to anybody. This was terrible. The defensive coordinator needs to hold this L. The offensive coordinator needs to hold this L. Russ, you got to hold this L. And somehow, I'm going to find a way, John Elway, you need to hold this L too. Last but not least is Gardner Minshew. Sir, you pulled out the win this past weekend, but you also managed to pull a Dan Orlovsky. You ran out of the back of your end zone. Now, I know the Ravens have a ferocious and fierce pass rush featuring Patrick Queen and Jadeveon Clowney, but Orlovsky, you got to have some field awareness, or Gardner Minshew. You had me confused on this one. I thought you were Dan Orlovsky running out of the back of the end zone. But you still have to hold this L. And since we are done handing out and giving out treats on this week's episode, I thought I would bring in another hand to help me out on this episode. Bring in some more thoughts and opinions. Spice it up a little bit. See what other takes that another mind, another opinion, another great sports mind like myself will have. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my colleague, Ryan Deshawn. Ryan, man, I appreciate you for coming on tonight to the show with me, being here as a special guest here on 3D, man. Ryan, let's dive straight into it, man. What are some of the reasons that made you get into sports, and what helped you find your reason and your love for sport?
I used to hate sports. I was a nerd, reading books all the time. Sit on the couch, read Harry Potter books, read more books, watch cartoons, play with action figures. It wasn't until I played kindergarten. In kindergarten, I played soccer and basketball in first grade, and then fourth grade, I went to football, and that's where I just started to fall in love with it. Everybody that pretty much knows me on a personal level knows that I just like to talk, debate, anything. I'm going to look for a reason to argue with you. I'm going to look for a reason to tap dance on your nerves. All of that stuff, that's just me. That's me. Like you said earlier, the internet troll. So I started playing Madden, 2K, learning the rosters of every team, college football, learning the rosters of every team. And I started getting to the point where I could memorize transactions that happened in real time years down the line. And that's how I became who I am today.
Man, that's great. That's definitely great to hear, man. Especially the Madden 2K. That kind of hit home for myself. You know, I remember going and scrolling through all the rosters in Madden, all the rosters in 2K, NCAA, creating my own rosters and making the schools like how they are in real life. Man, that definitely hit home for me. Brought back some great memories. What's some of your favorite teams and some of the players that piqued your interest in sports, and what helped you get and keep your following and love for sports?
So growing up, let's see, from football-wise, growing up, I enjoyed watching Peyton Manning. The first team that I gravitated towards was the Indianapolis Colts until I started watching more Cowboys games, because at that point in time, the Cowboys were, they just weren't that. So I enjoyed watching Peyton Manning growing up. LT, Romo, of course, T.O., Michael Strahan. Those were really my early heroes. Oh, and Jerome Bettis. I was a Steeler. I like the Steelers a lot too. They were pretty nice. And then basketball-wise, I like Kobe. Basketball-wise, it was Kobe, Jason Kidd, Dirk, and now it's Kevin Durant. I'm a Longhorn fan. My parents went to UT, and so anything UT I'm rooting for besides Tristan Thompson. I don't like him.
I can respect it. You did mention the Cowboys game earlier. That is definitely something that we have to take a deeper dive into. The Cowboys fell straight into the trap. They lulled themselves to sleep. Against the Cardinals, they fell right into the quicksand and they sunk very quickly. They walked into this one big, major favorites. It was very obvious very early that they weren't ready to play. They weren't awake. They weren't alert for this game. And a letdown, to say the least. It was. Cowboys in the second half had 5 red zone trips in which they came away with 6 points. In the end, Dak Prescott threw a very, very bad interception into almost triple coverage, one would say. Not sure what he was looking at, but I can't completely blame Dak. Play calling has been very shysty, one would say, when it comes down to that red zone. No playmakers. What say you about that, Ryan, and how did you feel watching the game this past weekend?
That game was lackluster. The defense got punched in the mouth early. They're impacted by Trayvon not being there. Dak, it's apparent that Mike does not trust him. They don't trust Dak. And then it doesn't help Dak's case that he threw a pick on a key possession, on a key play. Although the game was pretty much over with at that point in time. Truth be told, the defense was punched in the mouth early in the game due to Trayvon Diggs being hurt. You could tell it was a difference. It just had the same attitude or the same grit or the same edge. Gilmore is not, he's not the CB as he used to be. And yesterday we saw the O-line, no Zach Martin, no Tyron Smith, we was missing the starting center, I believe. And we do struggle in the red zone. We don't have a Zeke, we don't have a Dez, we don't have a tight end. Deuce Vaughn was good in the preseason. We might need to use him in the red zone because he was getting in there in the preseason. So why not utilize him now? It was just a terrible game all around. And it goes down to coaching, offense and defense, and GM, because we don't have speed on our defense. Our defense isn't that fast. Trayvon masked a lot of that. And honestly, we needed to lose that game.
I definitely agree with you on a couple points there. Definitely no playmakers down in the red zone. Dez, he's not coming back. We're not getting the X thrown up again. That's the one. That's the wrong 88. We got CD Lamb now. Dalton Schultz, he's not here. That was Dak's favorite target in the red zone. That was a security blanket. Zeke, he's going. That was who carried the ball the most in the red zone. Who's there now? Tony Pollard is small. He's not going up the middle to crash with anybody. Trayvon Diggs, him being gone, I would not say affected this game that much. We got ran all over for 200-plus yards. Trayvon couldn't have stopped that. He wouldn't have helped much whenever it came to that run defense. The run defense has been an Achilles heel for the Dallas Cowboys for practically as long as I can remember. Mozzie Smith, the first-round pick in this year's draft, hopefully we can hear his name called. I don't remember him being called through 3 weeks of the season. Dak, maybe it might come down to a trust issue with him. Does Mike McCarthy trust him? Is he reliable? They're coaching so he doesn't make mistakes, so they're settling for field goals instead. That's not going to win you games. 3 points is not more than 7. Definitely a tough one there and tough pill to swallow watching. Speaking of other tough pills to swallow, Colorado had a very tough pill to swallow this past weekend. It was possibly over by the first quarter, but it was definitely over by halftime in this one. As the Buffs go down 42-6, throbbing. It was a tough one to watch for me, being a Coach Prime fan. No Travis Hunter, big problem. Shedeur, he absolutely had no time to throw. Those guys, they weren't looking the same. With USC coming in and Caleb Williams, it's looking like another tough weekend and tough sledding for Coach Prime and those boys. What do you think about the game, and what do you see with Colorado going forward, Ron?
Them boys got smoked. Simple as that. I don't put too much on it. They were supposed to lose that game, truthfully. Next week when they play USC, it's next week, right? They're going to get smoked again. They play Washington later on, they're going to get smoked again. Like, they expect Dion to have Colorado really in the mix for a natty this season. That's not going to happen. I think his son should stay one more year just so he can get another year under his belt and get some more reps in. And they need another class or two to beef up that O-line and D-line. And they just can't keep relying on dude to play wide receiver and DB. I don't think their season is over by any stretch. I just don't think they're as good as a lot of people expected them to be after beating TCU. And this is just year one under Dion.
It's definitely been a great Cinderella story watching a one-win team transform themselves practically overnight. They got 3 wins. They got 3 wins, and they already doubled, even tripled their win total from last year. That's already stepping stones in the right direction, but people like to do in general, they build you up just so they can see you crash down. I think Shedeur Sanders, although Coach Prime is really harping on him to stay, I think he should probably go ahead and leave, take his talents to the NFL somewhere. If the O-line keeps looking the way that it has, unless he beefs up that front Coach Prime does for his son, I think Shedeur should probably bounce to the league, go on and get paid somewhere else, because if he keeps taking punishment like we just saw this past weekend with Oregon, he's not going to live to see the NFL. We will see what Coach Prime and those Buffs get into and what they have in store for us as they get into Caleb Williams and USC this next upcoming weekend. I hope the best for Coach Prime and those boys. That's honestly all I can do at this point. At this point, the rest of the world is putting the U.S. on notice. After Noah Lyles, USA sprinter, said how the NBA is not considered world champions. Well, German shooting guard Andreas Obst of Bayern, and from the World Cup champion Germany, he was critical of the NBA and their saying of the world champion. He made comments in agreement with United States sprinter Noah Lyles, and when Lyles' comments was saying how NBA players shouldn't call themselves world champions because they're not champions of the world. The NBA only plays the NBA, when that's only technically limiting themselves to half the world. I would actually have to be in agreement with Noah Lyles and Andreas Obst from Germany. I don't see how you can call yourself the world champion and you're not battling the world. You're battling amongst North America, at least. You know, you got Toronto Raptors, you know. What say you, Ryan, about that?
America is world champs. Technically, by definition, they aren't, but ultimately, everybody has dreams of playing in the NBA. Some of the worst players leave the NBA and go overseas and play in various leagues and end up being the best player in that league. I'm sorry, if the NBA players want to say they're the best in the world, they have the right to say that. However, the NBA is the NBA, and go ask Giannis right now, what does he want more, a world championship or that NBA championship? He'll tell you, the NBA.
It is funny how you mentioned Giannis Antetokounmpo being one of the players that did step out in agreement with Noah Lyles and German shooting guard Andreas Obst of the World Cup champion Germany. Said that The NBA players cannot call themselves world champions, and this is a world champion speaking, or world champion, NBA champion speaking. He's been there. He's done that. He's won a championship, so he knows the feeling. Yes, he is overseas, and most players that are coming out in agreement are in overseas, like Evan Fournier, for example, But the players that are coming out speaking out against Noah Lyles are players that mostly haven't won championships. Damian Lillard, PG, Devin Booker. These are guys that haven't won chips, so they don't even know what it feels like to be a NBA champion, let alone a world champion. So maybe they should leave the champion talk to champions like Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'll tell you what we don't know. We have no clue what's going to pan out next for us as this NBA offseason ends and starts kicking up. We got training camp coming up next week. I have no idea what's going to happen as this NBA season keeps unfolding. But I do know one thing. We're going to keep going for the gold, baby. Like and subscribe. Do not forget to like and subscribe. As we're sponsored by... Just playing. We ain't got no sponsors, man. Not yet. I appreciate y'all for sticking it out with us on another episode. Peace. We floating, baby, where your butt.
Mic check.
And Josh Dobbs. Not Kyler Murray, Josh Dobbs.